In this video, we're going to get started on assembling the engine block. Okay, so first of all, I just want to introduce you to the engine stand that I've got. I picked this one up from Super Cheap Auto. So that's just the red part on its own. It does come with its own mounting piece, but obviously it doesn't suitably fit a series engine. So I've purchased this adapter plate. So the blue part is a separate piece, and the advantage of that particular one is that it's actually suited for both an A series and also an A plus series. So there are a couple of extra steel plates here and then on there, depending on the setup. It can be adjusted to fit both an A series or an A plus series. The other two bolts down the bottom here bolt onto the oil filter housing. So let's talk about what work's been done on this block so far. So this is a 998 cc block, and it's actually been bored out to 60 thous. So the previous owner of the project had all that work done, so it's been rebored, machined as well, and the same with the head. That's all been prepared too. They got as far as installing the crankshaft. So the crankshaft's installed, but that's as far as they got. The pistons still obviously need to be reinstalled, so that's what I've got to do next. So reboring that motor out to 60 thou should actually increase the capacity to around 1043. So that'll give it a bit more power once it's all put back together. So I'll take some measurements on there. I'll just measure the actual diameter of that bore. These of course are not fantastically accurate, but just to give you some sort of idea. Okay, so 65.63 millimeters. All right, so let's have a look at the pistons that we've got here. So the brand of these ones is Hypertech pistons, and then the actual rings, the rings are Hastings. The other thing on these pistons, they're completely flat at the top. Purpose of that is just to increase the compression ratio. What else? These ones have got the 3 rings on them, not 4. I'll just compare it to one of the original pistons. So these are the original ones that were in the motor. I believe they're probably most likely the original ones that were in the when the motor was new. You just want to measure those just to see what the actual size difference is. So 65.06, and then the new ones 65.45. So slightly larger to suit the new bore size. Okay, so what I'm going to demonstrate now is just putting the piston rings on. I can take off this the bottom piece of the connecting rod. These pieces go just one way, so you can see the little indentation here, indentation there. Those ends line up together, but of course you want to keep the bolts in the same spot. Just put that aside for now. I'll put the actual rings on first. So the very bottom ring, it's actually made up of a few pieces. So I'll just grab everything out because then that way I've only got, you only need enough pieces for one, so it needs one of those. This is the third piston I'm up to now, but one of those. They're all tangled together. Goes back in the packet. And then one of those, and then two of these. Now this actual kit, it sort of shows you where each of those individual rings go, so hopefully you don't mess things up. Okay, so for this particular one here, the first thing that needs to go on is this like hexagonal sort of shaped piece, and just open it up, get it into that bottom position. Then we need to get one of these pieces, because that one gets sort of sandwiched in between those two rings. So we'll just get one of these on first. I might just turn that around just so these openings are all at different positions. And just pretty much just get it on, but be mindful that you don't score the side of the piston as you drag it down. That's right. Okay. So now I need to get this piece on, and I'll just rotate the piston just so the openings are at different positions. But for this one, it doesn't really matter. It's just things will hold together better and not get hooked into each other when you tighten it up. They'll sort of slide past each other freely if the openings aren't all in the one spot. Okay, and now I just need to get that one on top of that structure. Okay, so that's how the bottom ring set sit together. Okay, so the next one now, I need to install one of these. This one has the little indentation on it, and then apparently the indentation faces down. That's how everyone else seems to do it. So I'll just rotate that one. This one's a bit thicker, so you may need a tool to get it on. I'll show you the tool I've got here in a second. But if you pretty much get it on, you can do it by hand. Just make sure the edge of there doesn't score the piston. We don't want that to happen. Once you get the ends where they need to, then the rest of it will just follow. Okay, there we go. So that's the second one, and then the one that goes at the very top. Again, these ones here, this particular brand doesn't specify which way they need to go, but it's just... This one's pretty solid, so I may demonstrate using the tool, but I'll just see how I go. So this particular tool just spreads the ends of the ring apart to make it easier to get it on. But just be careful you don't stretch too much, and then again, once the ends are in the right spot, the rest of it sort of jumps into place. Okay. Before I attach that onto it, I will put the bearing on the bottom. So one will go in there, one goes into here, and then of course you line up that piece with the little notch on there. And the lubricant actually helps install these as well, because they will sort of just click into position, but you need to do it evenly so one end doesn't stick up higher than the other. So the way that these pistons get put onto the actual connecting rods, you'll notice that there's an arrow on the top of the piston head, and the arrow needs to point towards the front of the motor. So on an A series motor, where the water pump is, where the fan is, that is technically the front of the motor. That's where piston number similar to number 1 is. And then the orientation of the actual connecting rod, these two bolts sort of face towards the back side of the motor where the exhaust and inlet side of the motor are. Alright, so let me just put this one back together. Before that goes in the spring compressor, I'll just add a bit of lubricant on there, just so these will slide through easier once the ring compressor goes on. I just don't want to clog it up with this thick, don't want too much on there though. Okay. I just need to release a bit of the pressure. Okay, once they're, the rings are sort of about here in the centre of that. So that seems to be a good spot. And then just tighten it up. I'll just switch to the gloves to give me a bit more grip. And you'll probably find that it'll only let you tighten it up as much as it can go. You can't sort of really over tighten it. And it's not like 100% flat on there. There still is a bit of movement. Okay, that's all I can do so far. I just need to add a bit of lubricant onto this bottom bearing. And then we're ready to drop it into the cylinder. Alright, let's attempt to get it in there. So again, if you've got everything correctly installed, the arrowhead on the top of the piston points towards the front of the engine, which is where cylinder number 1 is. That's the actual front of the engine. Well, the front technically is here, but in a Mini, this is at the front of the car. This is where the alternator is. And the way that these get installed, you'll notice that the bottom piece of the connecting rod connects at the back. So that's where the back of the motor is when it's installed in a Mini. And then, of course, the arrow points towards the water pump. Right, so let's just get it into position. Just make sure you rotate the crankshaft just so the bottom of that connecting rod doesn't hit anything. And then we can start to push it down, because you only want to go as far as getting that very bottom ring in. Then you need to tighten this up, because that bottom ring is a lot, it does take a bit more compressing to get it together. So I might reach that point there. I may need to sort of tighten it up again. Another trick as well is to not bash this, but just sort of make sure that the actual metal of this ring compressor is level, and then it's level at the base, so bits of the spring don't stick out, the rings don't stick out. Okay, so we may have got it past the first set of rings. If I just lift it up a little bit, I'll be able to tell. Yeah, and I can see the second piston ring there. So if I compress it now, it should let me just do one more click. There we go. And then hopefully it'll just go in. There we go, in. Alright, so for the next step now, we need to, you don't have to rotate the whole engine upside down, you just need to get it just on its side. I'll just it's not going to spin, it'll just stay in that one position. Okay, so it is piston number 3, and you just need to get, there's the end of the connecting rod. We just need to bring it closer to where it sits on the crankshaft, and the easiest way is probably just to bring it all the way this way. There we go. So that's seated in the position where it would normally sit. So now we can put the bottom half of that connecting rod. So I've already put that bearing in and put some assembly lubricant on there. And try not to lose all the parts, and then make sure it goes the correct way, so where that little notch is, those ends go together. And you just want to hand tighten this up, because I will torque all of these bolts down once they're all in together. Okay, so the next process now is to fit the oil pump. There's the gasket there. I'm going to put some gasket sealer on each side of that, put that in there. The oil pump, I've pulled that apart, cleaned it up a bit, made sure everything's okay, checked the tolerances on there, and I have also just put some oil through it just to make sure things are okay. Alright, so before the camshaft gets installed, I just want to put some assembly lubricant on those bearings. Okay, so we're at the stage now we want to get all of the timing cover assembled. I've just done a test fit, making sure everything is all good. The first thing we need to do is sort out the gaskets. The usual kits come with two different size gaskets, and depending on the shape of your block, the difference is this little slit here. This is the other one, so I'm going to use that one because that will be the right one for it. So I think that's the only difference. Put them side by side, it's just, yeah, the shape there, and that's about it. Everything else is the same. So what I need to do is just get some Permatex on that. I'll just clean this down a bit. There's a bit of grease cam lube on there, so I'll just clean that up. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is just fit the sprockets on here, and I'm just doing a test fit first because what you need to do is actually get the chain onto them first, but I just want to make sure everything is ready, or makes it a bit easier. So the crankshaft sprocket, the woodruff key needs to sort of face upwards, like towards that top dead centre, because that's the position that you'll need to fit it to make the markings on each of the sprockets line up. I just need to adjust the camshaft. That's sort of, the woodruff key is roughly about at the 1 o'clock position. The other thing to point out too is that underneath here there are a couple of shims, and that's just been checked to make sure the actual teeth line up, and they are good. So let's just get the chain fitted. So with the chain, I've just got the sprockets sort of sitting in there, and you want to line up the markings. So this one has a little circle there, but the actual crank sprocket has a little bar, so they sort of line up neatly there. And if you're hanging it vertically like this, you'll be able to see when you're just looking at it. If you put it one link either way, you'll notice that it's going to just be way out and doesn't line up at all. So it isn't too difficult to get it in the right spot. And then of course, because of the woodruff keys on there, it's only going to fit in one position, so it's pretty fail safe. Okay, so now I'll just try and fit it and then see how we go. Okay, so this washer will sit on there. There's a little notch that goes into that hole there. And this piece just sits on there like that. The curved section faces upwards. Okay, so now we're ready to fit the actual cover. And now again, both kits, or the kits come with both size gaskets. So this particular gasket would be for the timing chain which has the tensioner on it. So that would sort of line up like that. But I've just got the standard cover, so this will be the gasket I am using. All right, just I want to quickly talk about distributor drive, the gear. So this spot here at what would be the front of the engine, that's where the distributor attaches to. The drive shaft comes through a hole here, and then it sits at this point here. So the way that goes in, it kind of just sits in there. So if you're not careful at certain times, you may dislodge this. What I want to do is just get that to, it'll sit in there, but you can take it out again and then turn it to get the actual the drive locator at the correct position that you want it. So usually like the 1 o'clock position for it to be at top dead center. So it is adjustable, but that's pretty much it, and it slides through there, and there isn't much clearance from where the actual pistons go. Alright, so the last thing to do, we can just fit this pulley back on now. And then you've got this locking tab and then the main bolt. Okay, I'll leave that, I'll tighten that up once other parts are put together, because I can't stop that engine from turning over easily at the moment. Okay, so that's the cam, shaft assembly and timing gears all fitted. And I think I might just leave it there for now. Thanks for watching my videos.